Farage. Joining me now is James Matthewson, who's a former Labour Party spokesman. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Should we start with this story that's doing the rounds, and it has been doing the rounds for about 2 days now, about... It was first mooted by Matthewson, who is now the new ambassador to the United States. He sort of said, look, I'm going to reach out around the confines of the Labour Party. Nigel Farage is in this unique position. Nigel Farage over the weekend had said, look, I'm willing to work in the national interest, to work with the Labour Party to build bridges, not least because the Labour Party has a terrible track record at not being very nice to Donald Trump. So Farage sort of, I suppose, held out his hand. Matthewson now says, well, actually, Farage is a very good fit. People like David Blunkett really unhappy about this. Is it a good idea for Farage and Matthewson to work together to salvage the special relationship?
Neither of them has any intention of working with each other, I would say. They will. And the reason being is because they're both playing political games here.
Are they?
Nigel Farage saying, you know, as he's right to in his position, you know, oh, I'll help you come together with Donald Trump. I'll help you work with the person who you hate. I'll help you do this because I'm in this position, you know, of confidence with him. You know, just put himself forward as that person. It's in every one of his interests to do so. Of course, the natural instinct for anybody in the Labour Party, myself included, would be to say, yeah, no thanks, Nigel, we're all right without you, mate.
But hang on a minute, Labour is doing pretty catastrophically. Maybe you need all the help you can get.
Well, yeah, but that's exactly my point, is that, you know, you feel that natural instinct is to say, yeah, Nigel, we don't like you and we don't like Trump, well, we're better off. Peter Mandelson's an expert. He's you know, he is the dark prince of the dark arts. You know, this is his area of expertise. And he knows the trap that Nigel Farage is setting in offering that and turning it down. So
can I just ask you, is there something you don't like about Nigel Farage? Is there a reason you don't want him associated with the Labour Party brand?
It's not about association with the Labour Party brand. It's that Nigel Farage is the antithesis of Labour Party politics.
Why? In what sense?
Well, because Nigel Farage is a far-right politician.
He's not far-right. I would say he's right of centre.
No, I don't believe so. I believe Nigel Farage is far-right in his politics. And that just shows you how far...
Tell me, why is he far-right?
Nigel Farage's politics and what he represents...
like what?
Is to the right of the Tories and always has been.
So like what, exactly?
Which is why he's flirted around Conservative politics for years.
No, just answer that question. So why is he far-right? What are the policies that make him far-right?
Many of his stuff, you know, I mean, a lot of the stuff we've seen in recent years, the anti-woke kind of stuff.
Is that far right?
He's attached himself to. I would say so. It certainly is in America.
Isn't it common sense?
That he's associated with. Well, I mean, that's because that's your politics as well, David, so you're going to say common sense. Common sense is only common sense if you agree with it.
OK, so what else is far right, then? If anti-woke is far right, what else?
I mean, majority of his positions on immigration and you know how the world works with regards to movement of people, that tends to be to the right of centre. Of course, it is. You know, immigration and the movement of people, the free flowing of people.
Well, but hang on a minute. Nigel Farage actually believes in immigration, just controlled immigration to ensure that we support our workforce in this country, not open doors.
Yeah, but it's the language used, isn't it? It's the rhetoric used, and we know this for years. Nigel's a very clever and very efficient politician, but the stuff that he talks about is about conservative values, is old-fashioned conservatism. You know, it's exactly the kind of stuff that the right of the Conservative Party likes. This is undisputed that Nigel Farage comes from that side of conservative politics. So, of course, the Labour Party naturally doesn't feel like it, you know, wants to agree with them. But Peter Matthewson knows better than that, and he knows that it's a trap if they refuse him. So, of course, he's calling his bluff. He'll say he's happy to work with them, and he'd be stupid to I think, turn down Nigel Farage. But I don't think they'll be, you know, close bedfellows in any sense of the word.
Shall we look at Labour? Because I think it's fair to say that actually the polling collapse has been fairly historic. When you look at this, the Labour Party is now averaging 26.6%. They were at 44%. So in, 5 months, they've managed to go down enormously. The last time they were at this kind of level was when Corbyn was around. I mean, it's disastrous.
It's almost worse statistically than the Corbyn situation, actually. It's getting closer towards the Lib Dems after coalition, which is fascinating when you think about it, because, you know, that was a party that took years and years and years to recover from that. And the reason that that happened was because the Lib Dems betrayed their electorate and they lied to them about, you know, what they were willing to accept and weren't willing to accept in coalition. You would think the Labour Party would not be anywhere near that situation because, yes, it's had challenges and, yes, it's had to do things that even I disagree with and I would hold them to account on. But, you know, it's not the same level. But I do think across the board, we've seen polling collapse for most political parties, and the fact that the Labour Party...
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I mean, that isn't true. We've seen collapse in the Conservative vote because they're not Conservative. We've seen collapse in the Labour vote. Actually, the Lib Dems aren't doing very well. What they're very good at is targeted electioneering. We know that in terms of the numbers of votes they got and then the seats they won. But, and I'm saying this objectively, not as someone who has been and is associated with a political party, but Reform is growing and is at 100,000 members. Now, this is the youngest political party in the world.
Yeah, the thing is with Reform, a bit like the Lib Dems, as you say, they've got that expertise in targeting. There's a ceiling with that. There's a limit. There's an upper limit. There are certain people who will vote for Reform, and there are certain people who will never.
What, like Labour voters? Labour voters are voting for Reform?
I don't think you'll bring people from the centre of British politics to vote for Reform. I would be fascinated if Reform can target centrist voters and people who move between the Tories and Labour in that kind of general middle ground of British politics that we tend to see, and they're the ones who ultimately shift election and election results. You'll see that targeted seat approach, as have you seen at the last election, which works for Reform. But you'll never, I believe,
I would actually argue that Reform didn't target, and that is what went wrong, just in terms of the numbers of votes and coming second in many of those seats. Let's just go back to Labour, if I can. It has gone horribly wrong, and I was asking this morning: is that naivety? Is it ignorance? Is it believing that actually things are going to be easier? Now, Yvette Cooper has been out and about giving festive cheer and mince pies to her constituents. She was then attacked by a very angry voter who branded her a two-faced something for handing out mince pies whilst pensioners are freezing to death. Let's just pause and watch what happened.
I'm just shocked seeing you and not away. And give mince pies out to people. For what reason?
We do it every Christmas. Well, would you like one?
No.
All right.
No, I hope you're not going to win next time. I hope you're out next time. I really do.
Everybody's got different views, haven't they? But it is Christmas time. It is Christmas.
It is. You've betrayed everything that everybody voted for you for, in everything. Well, smashing gang, load of rubbish, you know it, and you're going to house a load of them around here. We know you are. We know your plans.
Well, actually, do you know we're already...
Yeah,
we are already cutting the asylum hotels.
What about when you got that photo done and all that with Waspy women?
Yeah, we are already...
You changed your mind with that.
We are already cutting the asylum hotels.
You know, you've got more.
No, we've actually been cutting them.
You've got more. Cut Rwanda, you cut everything. This is a joke. And now you're going to try and stop people on donating. Everything's like changing. That is so two-faced. In a mince pie out.
Yeah. It's a nice tradition.
No. Give them a blanket because they're freezing to death.
Ooh, James, your thoughts?
I mean, it's never a good look, and it's an uncomfortable situation for Yvette Cooper to be in, of course. But it's nothing new. I don't think there's ever been a Home Secretary in history who hasn't, faced criticism when they've been out and about.
But hang on a minute. You're starting to see tribally Labour voters turning against the Labour government because they believe what they've done is pretty barbaric.
Yeah, I mean, understandably, I disagree on the policy of the winter fuel allowance cut. But these are things they have to stand by and have to defend if they,
even if it's wrong.
That's what they've taken.
But even if it's wrong.
Yvette Cooper doesn't believe it's wrong because she's voted for it and she's supported it and she's still in government. If she would have, she wouldn't have done so. So she has to stand by it. It's her policy.
Does she? Doesn't it? I mean, wouldn't it be stronger, more magnanimous to say, look, we've actually reconsidered this. It's a terrible idea. We don't want people freezing to death this Christmas.
I'd love them to do that. I really would, David. I think that would be the right thing to do. But ultimately, Rachel Reeves believes in doing so and in doing that, and believes it's necessary to balance the books. I disagree. Many people in the Labour Party disagree. This is where we are. The Treasury seems to rule the roost when it comes to setting Labour policy at the moment. I understand the need for difficult decisions to be made, but I believe the winter fuel allowance more than anything has been damaging. Things like the farmers' inheritance tax and stuff like that, wouldn't you turn on that 1 second? I'm fully behind something like that.
Even though Keir Starmer sold land, Keir Starmer sold land for £400,000, and yet he believes that any farmer over £1 million won't be affected. None of that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense as a policy when you look into it. And same with the VAT.
Has Keir Starmer been to a farm, do you think?
Of course he's been to a farm. You know, he's the Prime Minister. He's been to many farms. We have Labour's won in many rural seats this time round. You know, I grew up on a farm. I'm from a family of farm labourers. You know, this isn't about being out of touch with farming communities. The people who are frustrated by this are millionaire landowners, not farmers.
No, farmers are very frustrated. I've seen all the campaigning. You've seen the tractors in Westminster. That's not true.
Yeah, and the majority, if you look statistically, the majority of those people who are there will not be affected. It is a complete... and the whole...
That's not what the farmers say.
The language that's being used around that by the NFU and by people is whipping up a storm. And if you speak to farmers and actually say, are you affected by this? Do you understand this? The majority of them say no, because they believe farming itself is under attack.
Well, my friends who are farmers must be very unusual then, because every single one I talk to is absolutely apoplectic about what is going on. Let me just talk about economy. We've now found out the UK economy showed no growth in the last quarter. This is according to the revised figures from the ONS. July and September it grew by 0.1%. Labour says the economic outlook is frustrating. You caused it, Labour.
Yeah, it's frustrating, of course it is, when you're in government and the economic outlook is like that. But, I mean, they have a huge responsibility to turn around the country and turn it around from a situation that was in. And they're changing the entire direction of how economics is done. You know, they're shifting from a conservative way of doing economics to a, frankly, Keynesian method of doing economics.
So, what exactly is that? No growth and chucking money at unions? Is that the model?
Chucking the idea of throwing money at unions. When you say that, what you mean is you're putting money towards people. People are unions. Unions are people.
I'm talking about above inflation pay rises to people, many people who are actually very well paid already.
They're not very well paid.
Train drivers aren't very well paid? I think they're very well paid.
For pay rises in the public sector for many, many, many years after 14 years of austerity. So, of course, it's long overdue and that Labour has to settle that score immediately. It's in doing things like that and in taking difficult decisions to invest now that they hope to stimulate growth in the long term and then see that economic situation turn around. So, of course, they're going to be frustrated with it currently, but their hope is that it will turn around in the long term.
I mean, it's interesting. The press are very much against this. Daily Express this morning, Labour set to drive the UK headlong into a recession. The Daily Mail this morning, economy is heading for the worst of all worlds.
The Daily Express and the Daily Mail.
The Times as well.
Ever going to
let me just ask you very quickly, if I may, and thank you for your time over this festive period. What do you think Labour has actually done well?
So far in government, I think what they've done is they've turned around the country economically to a different position, a different way of doing things. Ultimately, they've made difficult
downwards?
decisions that even I disagree with.
The economy is worse now than it was when Labour took over.
Right now, yeah, we're talking 5.5 months in.
But you just told me they've done a brilliant job with the economy.
About a long-term...
Hang on a minute, you just said what Labour did well was the economy. The economy is going down.
I've said what they've done is they've shifted the economic focus and the way that they do economics so that in the long run there will be growth stimulated by investment rather than withdrawal.
Hang on a minute, I just don't understand this. When you've got employers saying they're going to lay people off because they cannot afford employers' national insurance, when you've got charities saying Rachel Reeves is taking more of our cash, we can't afford to employ anyone, when you've got SMEs saying I'm shutting up shop, that isn't progress.
No, and that message from the beginning was that this is going to hurt. It's going to be difficult from the outset. But it was either that or it was austerity. And austerity, we saw what austerity did for 14 years. By robbing the public sector and public services of money, the country grinds to a halt. So it was either that or that. It was about taking money from every possible place you can take it from, despite the fact that that pain will be shared across the board by many of us, or targeting the most vulnerable, and they made the decision to protect the most vulnerable. They kept the triple lock there and tax on working people, and they've kept those cuts away from welfare of the most vulnerable people, and they've been able to try and spread it out across those with the broadest shoulders. But the economic situation was dire, and they're going to have to turn that around. So in this short kind of time frame that we've seen, 5.5 months, they've managed to make difficult decisions to do that, I believe. But already the things that I've seen with regard to workers' rights, the way that trade unions are now involved in the government directly at the cabinet table, and those relationships, you know, it's a really positive stuff for the long run. It's just going to take time for a lot of these things to come to fruition.
I mean, there seems to be a real dichotomy here between what you're saying and what people are telling me, which is that the money is going on stupid schemes like carbon capture, net zero, things no one ever voted for, foreign aid, for example. Charity begins at home, does it not?
Well, David, with all due respect, your politics are not Labour politics. You are the antithesis of the Labour Party.
I'm a pragmatist.
This channel is the antithesis of Labour politics. So the majority of people you will hear from will be leaning Conservative. Now, of course, those people deserve representation, deserve to be heard, but they're not going to like things like net zero schemes, tackling climate change, tackling things that the Labour Party deems to be important, because they're just not those kind of people. And these are things that I deem to be important as a progressive. You're not a progressive, so I don't expect you to agree.
Really good to talk to you, James. I wish you a very happy Christmas. That's James Matthewson, their former Labour Party spokesman.